A book on the shelf is just paper. A book in your mind is power. Welcome to Season 1, Money and Mindset. Here is a hard truth. You cannot work your way to freedom if your mind is programmed for survival. The game of wealth is rigged, but not in the way you think. In this season, we dismantle the myths of success, from the alchemy of intuition to the cold psychology of the market. We are here to rewrite your internal script.
Let's decode. So here's a question I've been thinking about. Why does this one book, a book that seems on the surface to be, a pretty simple spiritual fairy tale about a shepherd boy looking for treasure. Why does it have this fierce global loyalty? Why does it inspire CEOs and artists and yet at the same time feels so completely misunderstood by most of the people who read it? If you ask anyone who's read it, they usually say something like, oh, it's simple, it's charming, or my favorite, a sweetly exotic inspirational fable.
Right.
It gets put on the self-help shelf and sort of dismissed as this gentle little story about following your dreams.
And that right there, that is the single biggest misunderstanding of the book's success. People mistake its elegance, its really sparse storytelling, for shallowness.
Yeah.
They think they got the message, go find your treasure, and then they just, move on.
But I want to push back on that because I used to think the same thing. I really did. I thought, okay, isn't this just spiritualizing common sense? But you're arguing that underneath this simple story of a shepherd boy, Santiago, is a really complex psychological roadmap.
It is. It's a detailed blueprint for psychological survival when you're attempting something long-term and high stakes. And what's really fascinating, what we're going to get into, is that it actually plots out the specific mechanisms, the internal algorithms, if you will, that cause almost everyone to self-sabotage right when they get close to their potential.
So you're saying this book isn't really about ancient secrets or magic. It's about the very modern problem of staying on track with your purpose when, life and money and society are all trying to pull you back into the comfort zone.
Precisely. It deals with the economic weight of opportunity cost, the subtle anxiety of your own potential, and how you can translate intuition into actual intelligence you can use, and that deep, deep fear that comes with realizing what you're actually capable of.
So our mission today is a true decoding. We're going to try and uncover that hidden framework. We're going to show you that Santiago's journey applies directly to your career, to how you manage financial risk, and to your long-term vocation.
If you've read it before, get ready. You're about to see this book is way deeper than you thought.
And if you haven't, well, you might just find the reason you need to finally pick it up.
We have to start at the foundation, which is the personal legend. The P.L. Coelho is so careful with this definition. He doesn't say it's fate or something preordained. He says it's what you have always wanted to accomplish.
And critically, he calls it a person's only real obligation.
Yes.
And I think that word obligation is everything. It shifts purpose from this passive hope into an active duty, a duty you owe to yourself. It's the psychology of doing the work you were meant to do.
Even if it seems completely impractical or, financially insane to everyone around you.
Right. I mean, think about where Santiago starts. His parents have this really clear path for him.
Yeah.
He'd become a priest. It would be a source of stable pride for their family.
A very safe, respectable path.
But Santiago chooses to be a shepherd because he values travel and seeing the world more than that expected path. That first choice, putting personal experience over what society expects, that's the first step. That's the start of the personal legend.
But if it's so hard, why does the book immediately give him what sounds like?
Well, magical help. I'm talking about the principle of favorability, beginner's luck.
Yeah, that part. When he decides to sell his flock, he finds a buyer right away. It's so easy. Isn't that just spiritualizing an easy win? Which is, exactly the kind of shallow reading people criticize the book for.
It's a fair challenge, but the subtlety is in why it happens.
Yeah.
The king, Melchizedek, he explains it. He says this is a mechanism to whet your appetite with a taste of success. It's not magic that's going to clear the whole path for you. It's more like it's psychological reality giving you a small early win to build the confidence you absolutely need before the real challenges start. So it's like psychological scaffolding. That first little success, it confirms that core idea from the book that when you want something, all the universe conspires to help you.
Exactly.
And in modern terms, that conspiracy is just. What happens when your internal will starts aligning with your external observation? You start noticing things. And that early momentum just helps you get over those first few hurdles that always feel impossible. Finding your first client, saving your first $1,000.
Precisely. But if the universe is conspiring to help you, you need an antagonist. And the book gives us a really specific one, the world's greatest lie.
Which is?
The lie is that at some point, we lose control, that our lives just become controlled by fate. And the devastating part is that this lie is almost always self-imposed.
It's that voice of resistance, isn't it? It's born from all your past compromises, and it's the voice that says, I'm too old now, or I missed my chance, or that dream is for other people. It's too complicated for me.
Santiago's own father had that voice. He buried his own dream of travel under the responsibility of providing security. And that disappointment then becomes the resistance the son has to overcome just to get started.
And this resistance, this psychological barrier, it's often disguised as what Coelho calls a mysterious force. It seems negative, but it's actually there to prepare your spirit and your will.
Which means that right after that beginner's look wears off, the path gets aggressively, intentionally harder, not easier. It's a filtering mechanism. It makes sure you develop the strength you need for the actual journey, and it separates the truly committed from the people who are just, curious.
And that brings us to the perfect cautionary tale in the book, the one that's designed to make you stop and look at your own life. The baker.
The baker is the perfect foil for Santiago.
He is. When he was young, he wanted to travel, just like Santiago. But he chose stability. He prioritized buying his bakery, putting money away, convincing himself that bakers are more important people than shepherds.
And that's the critical psychological split. The baker knew he was capable. The book says he realized people are, quote, at any time in their lives of doing what they dream of, but he delayed.
He chose safety. He chose social standing over his passion. His story is this powerful, painful lesson in opportunity cost, not just financial cost, but existential cost.
The cost of putting off your personal legend isn't just lost time. It's trading the potential richness of a life fully lived for predictable, but ultimately stagnant comfort.
Right. The baker worried more about what his community thought of him, this reliable, stable guy, than he did about the death of his own dream. He's the living embodiment of the world's greatest lie.
So if the personal legend is the destination, then the omens. The omens are the navigation system. And a lot of readers just write them off as purely mystical, the language of God.
But we're decoding them as something else, as high-level, subconscious, intuition as data synthesis.
Exactly.
So how do we translate that? How do we turn that mystical language into a practical tool for your mindset?
Well, Santiago was already doing it before he even started the journey. He learned to spot omens by just watching his sheep. He learned where snakes were, where water was, just by their movements. Omens are just data streams. They're subtle patterns in the world that his conscious mind was just too busy or too linear to notice before.
So intuition, in the book's context, is this sudden immersion of the soul into the universal current of life, which is a beautiful phrase, but functionally, it's just deep subconscious pattern recognition.
It's like having a specialized AI running in the background. It's collecting millions of tiny data points, a sheep's body language, the way a bird flies, the tone in someone's voice, and then it just flashes a conclusion into your mind. You learn to read the world without words.
There's a perfect example right when he gets to Tangier. He sees a candy seller speaking Arabic and a customer speaking Spanish, but they understand each other perfectly.
Through gestures, emotion.
And he has this realization. There must be a language that doesn't depend on words. That little observation, which is so easy to miss when you're reading, that's him calibrating his own internal radar for all the nonverbal cues the world is giving him.
But just recognizing patterns can feel...
like subjective.
Right. So to give him a more objective tool, Melchizedek gives him the two stones, Urim and Thummim.
Black for yes, white for no.
Right. But they're not fortune-telling toys. They're a check and balance system. And the instructions are so precise. He says, always ask an objective question, and this is the most important part. Try to make your own decisions.
So the stones are a safeguard. They're not a substitute for his own thinking. They're there for when he's completely overwhelmed, like after he gets robbed in Tangier. But they're meant to build his self-trust, not replace it.
And that idea of self-trust is driven home in this one powerful moment. The power of release. Santiago's in Tangier. He's broke. He's desperate. And he pulls out the stones to ask, am I going to find my treasure?
And they fall through a hole in his pouch. Both of them. Lost in the sand.
That's the ultimate omen. It's the universe telling him, stop asking for guarantees. The answer depends on what you do next. Stop looking for certainty and start walking. By letting the stones fall away, he's forced to rely completely on his own courage, on his present reality. He has to give up on guaranteed success to take true, unaided action.
Which brings us to the desert. It's the biggest metaphor in the entire book. It's not just a place. It's the crucible of commitment.
It's the psychological environment you have to go through for intense, long-term growth. It's defined by loneliness, total uncertainty, and the need for constant, sustained risk management.
You enter with a caravan, and the alchemist himself confirms it later. There's no going back, which is a perfect parallel for any huge long-term project. Starting a business, getting a PhD, mastering a craft. The beginner's luck is gone, and now you're just in the middle of it. In the grind.
And the whole atmosphere changes, doesn't it? The journey starts with all this chaos and noise at the edge of the city. But once you're deep in the desert, there's nothing, just the wind and the silence.
Why is it silence so important?
Because that long, hard journey forces this intense, almost painful focus on the present moment. It's an environment of constant high risk where getting distracted, worrying about the past, fearing the future can literally get you killed. The desert demands absolute discipline.
And that sets up what the alchemist calls the test. He warns that the desert tests all men. It challenges every step and kills those who become distracted.
In a professional sense, distraction is just losing that long-term focus because of day-to-day problems or some immediate crisis. The desert is what separates the people who are truly committed from those who are just along for the ride.
And to survive that, he gets this powerful anti-anxiety tool from the camel driver, the wisdom of the present. The driver says, I'm interested only in the present. If you can concentrate always on the present, you'll be a happy man.
And this isn't just, feel-good pop psychology. It's an operational discipline for navigating long periods of uncertainty. You can't afford to be paralyzed by your past failures, like getting robbed, or your future anxieties like the tribal wars. You just have to focus on the immediate task. Eat when it's time to eat. March when it's time to march.
By mastering the present moment, you navigate the entire high-risk journey. The driver even explains the logic. If you improve on the present, what comes later will also be better.
Your future success is just an accumulation of well-managed present moments. That's what the desert teaches.
Okay, so then Santiago finally meets the alchemist. He's this incredibly mysterious, compelling character. But if we're decoding him, he's not some mystical guru, is he?
Not at all. He's the ultimate reflection of Santiago's own emerging self-trust.
He's the guide who refuses to just teach you theory.
Exactly. His whole philosophy is action over instruction. He immediately tells the boy, there is only one way to learn. It's through action. Everything you need to know, you have learned through your journey.
And that's such a critical moment. The alchemist is validating that all the real-world knowledge the boy gained from his sheep, from the crystal shop, from the desert, is more valuable than any book. The mentor is just a mirror, confirming the wisdom the boy has already earned through experience.
And what's the one quality the alchemist is trying to build in him?
Courage.
Courage. He insists courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world. And it's not the courage to fight, it's the courage to commit, the courage to risk everything you've learned on your next step.
And he doesn't just talk about it. He engineers these insane pressure tests, the encounter with the horseman, and then that moment with the general where he demands Santiago turn himself into the wind.
They're life or death situations, and they're designed specifically to forge that courage. The stakes get higher because the boy has come so far, and now only a total act of courage will get him through that final gate. It's about putting up maximum collateral, risking everything to prove you're committed.
Which connects directly to the real meaning of alchemy itself. The whole search for the philosopher's stone. It's not actually about turning lead into gold.
No. The book explains that the true alchemists, the ones who found the masterwork, they spent so much time watching the fire purify the metals that they eventually turned that focus inward. They started pursuing the purification of themselves. They gave up the vanities of the world.
So the external success, the gold, was just a side effect of their internal evolution. Their ability to transform metal was just proof that they had first transformed their own character.
Which is a profound statement about any vocation. If you want to achieve true mastery in your field, it inherently requires you to refine your own character, to purge your ego, and to sacrifice your comfort. The outer gold is just a reflection of your internal purity.
And that brings us to the biggest misunderstanding of the whole book, the treasure. It is not just the chest of Spanish gold he finds at the end.
No. If it were, the entire journey would have been a colossal waste of time. He could have just stayed home and dug a hole.
The real treasure is the person he became, his realized self, his expanded capacity. The gold is just the artifact. The man he became is the real capital.
And the key to this is right in the prologue. The story of Narcissus and the lake. The lake weeps after Narcissus dies, not because he was beautiful, but because, as the lake says in his eyes, I saw my own beauty reflected. The lake was grieving the loss of its own reflection.
Applying that to Santiago, the gold he finds back at the church isn't the reward from the pyramids. It's just the external reflection of the internal growth he achieved on the journey to the pyramid.
The pyramids were just the catalyst, the signpost. The external reward is the lake's reflection, not the water itself.
And the ultimate proof of his achievement, the ROI, is when he performs that miracle, when he turns himself into the wind. He's able to do that because he finally understands that the soul of God was his own soul. He learned the language of the world through action and courage, and that made him capable of manifesting reality.
The return on investment isn't the gold. It's the self-worth, the experience, the proven capacity for courage that he brings back with him. The journey created the person who was finally capable of holding that treasure.
Okay, so if you read The Alchemist years ago and you worked away thinking the message was just, go follow your dream, hopefully that first part showed you how much more there is to it.
So now we're going to dive into the really subtle ideas. The things most readers miss, the psychological traps, and the harsh truths about commitment that are hidden in the story.
These are the lessons that really turn the book into a manual for psychological courage, because they show you all the internal reasons we fail, even when we're so close to success.
And we have to go back to the Crystal Merchant. He is arguably the most important character in the book, besides Santiago and the Alchemist. He's prosperous, he's stable, and he is deeply, deeply miserable. He's trapped by his own comfort.
His personal legend is to visit Mecca, and he says, "It's the thought of Mecca that keeps me alive."
Which is a devastating psychological insight. He is paralyzed by the fear of fulfillment.
Not the fear of failure, the fear of fulfillment.
Exactly. He's terrified that if he actually achieves his dream, he'll have no reason to go on living. The dream, when it's kept at a distance, becomes a coping mechanism for his mediocre present.
It's a psychological placeholder. If he actually goes to Mecca, the security of his predictable routine is gone, and he's terrified of that void, of having to find a new purpose.
And that subtle fear, the fear of losing your purpose after you achieve it, is what keeps millions of people trapped in comfortable lives. It's the executive who's terrified of retirement, the entrepreneur who won't sell their company because they don't know who they are without the struggle.
And Santiago keeps trying to help him, to build a display case, to sell tea in the crystal glasses, and the merchant resists every one of those small steps. And this illustrates another concept: the curse of ignored blessings.
The merchant himself realizes it. He says every blessing ignored becomes a curse. By resisting growth, by refusing to adapt, he misses all these opportunities to expand his life. He chooses the stagnation he can control over the unknown effort that growth requires.
And the irony is it's so thick. The moment he lets the boy sell tea in the glasses, his business explodes. He has to hire people. And he admits that the boy's presence was a blessing that forced him to see horizons he never knew existed.
And that made him feel worse, because now he knows his own potential and he still refuses to act on it. The anxiety of knowing what you're capable of can be so much harder to handle than the comfort of just staying put.
Okay, then there's the Fatima dilemma, this huge tension that's introduced when Santiago meets Fatima at the oasis. He's tempted to just stop, to stay, give up the journey, all for love.
This is the ultimate test of his commitment. And the Alchemist gives him this incredibly harsh but necessary lesson about true love as fuel.
Right. If he stays, he gets that immediate gratification, happiness, comfort. But the Alchemist gives him this chillingly specific prediction of his future. He says you'll be happy for a year.
But eventually, the omens will leave you, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you abandoned your personal legend. And the reason is so critical. What was keeping him there wasn't actually true love. It was his own fear that he might fail if he continued and never make it back to her. He was trying to possess the relationship as a substitute for his purpose.
True love, as the book defines it, has to support the pursuit of the personal legend. The core idea is love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. If he gives it up for her, then it wasn't true love.
Which frames the journey as a required act of responsibility to the relationship. Fatima is a woman of the desert. She's proud of men who go on their journeys. She waits with hope, not with this possessive resentment.
The book is arguing that if you compromise your core purpose for a relationship, you actually diminish the person you bring to that relationship, and then the love itself eventually fades, which is a huge challenge to the idea of codependence.
It is. It insists that you have to fulfill your own destiny to be fully present and worthy of a true partnership.
Let's talk about failure and risk. The book uses external failures to make Santiago stronger internally. He gets robbed twice. Once at the beginning, and then again right near the end.
And the alchemist uses that second robbery as a teaching moment. He just gives the gold away, saying money has no value if you're out to die. He's emphasizing that the life, the knowledge, the courage you've gained, that's the real capital.
And that leads to this concept of the darkest hour. The alchemist connects this final test to a brutal proverb that a person dies of thirst just when the palm trees have appeared on the horizon.
It's that moment just before the breakthrough when the fear of failure is at its absolute peak. It's the final psychological pressure test you need for mastery.
I mean, that's the summary of every startup journey, right? The biggest psychological hurdle is always at the 99% mark. Santiago's own heart is telling him that if he keeps going, he could lose everything he's already gained, the money, the love of Fatima. It's the point of maximum resistance.
And the alchemist gives him this profound anti-anxiety mantra. He says, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams.
Wow.
Suffering is guaranteed. You will get robbed, you'll be delayed, you will be tested. But the fear of that suffering, the anxiety that paralyzes you and makes you quit right before the finish line, that's the real dream killer. The book reframes it so that every second of the search itself, no matter what happens, is the reward.
Okay, finally, let's decode Maktub. It is written. When the crystal merchant says it, it sounds so fatalistic, like he's just resigned to his life.
But that's not how the book uses it overall. It's describing a much deeper idea of alignment. We can decode it as the spiritual economics of alignment.
What does that mean?
It means that Maktub isn't about a pre-programmed destiny where you have no choice. It's about recognizing that our life stories and the history of the world were written by the same hand. It means the conditions for your personal legend are already optimized inside the system of the world. The path is there. You just have to choose to walk it.
But if the path is already written, what's the point of action?
And that's where the seer's teaching comes in. He says, if you pay attention to the present, you can improve upon it. And if you improve on the present, what comes later will also be better.
So Maktub means the potential is there, the universe is ready to conspire, but you have to bring the effort. You have to the presence right now in this moment.
Destiny is the potential energy. Your free will is the kinetic energy that activates it. You have to work to improve the present, not just sit around waiting for the future to happen. It turns Maktub from fatalism into a profound responsibility.
Okay, so if we're going to accept that The Alchemist is this psychological map, this operational manual for life, then we have to actually apply it. We have to stop thinking of the personal legend as some passive romantic dream.
And start seeing it as a demanding responsibility that requires constant action.
Right. We're not telling you to quit your job tomorrow and, move to the desert.
No, we're asking you to apply these lessons, courage, self-trust, focusing on the present, to the life you're living right now, specifically in the areas where you feel the most resistance.
So we have some mindset homework for you, starting with homework number 1. Tonight, the fear question.
Tonight, before you go to sleep, we want you to really examine your deepest compromises. Look at the comfort zones you've built, the job with the steady paycheck, the relationship where you've maybe downplayed your ambition, and ask yourself one single, terrifying question.
The question is this: what current comfort, job security, relationship stability, whatever it is, am I prioritizing over my ultimate vocation? And is my heart afraid of failing on the journey? Or is it afraid of the emptiness that might come after I succeed?
That's the crystal merchant's fear, the fear of the void.
And that distinction is everything. Are you afraid of trying and failing? Or are you afraid of succeeding and then having to face a whole new unknown world that will demand even more from you? If you can answer that honestly, you've found the source of your resistance.
Okay, homework number 2, tomorrow. The small step. Santiago realized he was already speaking the language without words in Tangier. The knowledge was already in him, he just had to act on it.
So for your small step, identify one small lesson you've learned from a past intuitive hit. A hunch that worked out, a little success you brushed off as luck. That's your earned wisdom. And tomorrow, commit to acting on that intuitive knowledge in one very small way.
Maybe it means you finally spend 1 hour on that passion project you've been putting off. Or you make that one difficult phone call that you know is aligned with your future, even if it feels scary. It just has to be a real action, rooted in your own earned wisdom. Test your intuition in the real world.
And finally, homework number 3. This week, the belief challenge. This week, we want you to consciously challenge the world's greatest lie in your own life. That moment where you feel like your life is just being controlled by circumstances.
Your belief challenge is to identify one long-held belief you have that says something like, this dream is too complex, or it's too late for me to start, or that's only for other smarter people. That feeling is the exact force the book talks about.
And then you replace that belief with the core truth from the book. I am capable at any time of doing what I dream of.
The Alchemist taught that when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. Your internal reality creates your external experience. You have to believe in your own capacity first before the world can reflect it back to you.
So, The Alchemist. It's this dense philosophical text, but it's disguised as a simple fairy tale. It's a manual for psychological courage, a guide for turning intuition into action.
It's a blueprint for self-purification. It teaches us that if you want to create gold in the external world, whether that's wealth or career success, you first have to purify the raw material of yourself.
And the journey to your treasure is guaranteed to test you on everything you've learned, right up until the very last moment. Remember that warning from The Alchemist. You will feel the urge to give up right when the palm trees are on the horizon, right when you are closest to true, lasting success.
And here's the final provocative thought, and it comes from the climax of the story. The alchemist didn't teach the boy how to perform the masterwork, how to turn himself into the wind, until the boy was willing to risk his own life for his legend.
Your personal evolution demands a commensurate risk. So what are you willing to put on the table today? What small piece of comfort, what small piece of security, what old limiting belief are you willing to risk to prove that you believe in your own capacity to speak the language of the world?
If you haven't read The Alchemist, or if it's been a while, we hope this gives you a new lens. Pick it up. Read it not as a fairy tale, but as the instruction manual for psychological courage that it truly is.
The search for that deep knowledge. That's the real reward. The ultimate treasure is who you become along the way.
You've reached the end of this exploration, but not the end of the idea. Let it echo. Let it integrate. And when you're ready for the next step, return to Decoded by MORROW. Wisdom is a journey, not a conclusion. Let's decode.